What's going on, you bunch of heretics? Grab your paint pots, grab your recaff, and let's get some paint on that ever-growing pile of potential. Today it's the Heresy is My Therapy Slapchop tutorials. Today we're going to be slapchopping a Genestealer in the classic Space Hulk Genestealer fashion. Also today I'm going to be changing my dry brushing a little bit because I'm going to be using the Masterclass brushes, Masterclass dry brushes from the Army Painter. So we'll see how we get on with those as well. Anyway, as always, everything you need will be in the description below. Let's get to it. Here we are, folks. So here we are. We've got ourselves the Army Painter dry brush. That's the medium. And we've got ourselves a small. They're a little bit different, as you can see from the Games Workshop ones, in that we'll take the small and the small. Two very different dry brush heads. So we'll see how we get on with these. I reckon I'm probably going to use the Citadel one for the Zandri Dust, but we'll see. We'll see. Yeah, a lot more like almost like a makeup brush, in essence, for those. But anyway, as always, guys, we're going to go through our usual 4 grey to white, dark grey to light system, and I'm going to give this this Army Painter medium a chance. So you know the routine: shake it all up, Administratum grey. Let's get it on that brush, and then we'll just take as much of it off as possible, and then we'll just start to dry brush the model. Just remember, with this initial one, we're getting absolutely everywhere. You know, I think I am gonna up it a little bit with some of this. I think I'm actually gonna start doing a bit more in the shadows with the lighter stuff as well. Because the shadows will create shadows anyway. So as always that we do before, you know, we always go with the big one to start with, and then we use the smaller one to get into the recesses. We'll do the same now. We'll do the same now with this. So we've used that one. We'll give a nice little clean off. I will say, cleaning wise, first impressions to clean these off, they do seem a little bit easier, in all fairness, but hey. Let's just get that on there. Okay, and that's a small one just being applied into those areas. Interesting one of the Genestealers. So going to be a lot of blue on this with purple. So it's the blue and purple. We might even use like a black Templar, real thin down over it on. Next up, as always, no change. If you've been following the tutorials, guys, you'll know what we're doing here. You'll know what we're doing here. Interesting brushes, these. They feel very light. Like there's no... This might sound really weird, but this feels a lot lighter than this one. I don't know if that's a good thing or not. I don't know. Alright, next one on. Administratum grey. Yeah, we're just going to get that everywhere as well. All over the model. Just feather it around, just small circles. We're just going to... This is the kind of model I think that kind of warrants small circles. It doesn't stay on the brush that long, this. I think the GW ones hold it a bit longer. I don't know. I think maybe they're going to take a little bit of getting used to, I think. We'll go with that. I think maybe they'll just take a little bit of getting used to, guys. So like I say, small circles all over the model. Right, Administratum grey applied. And now we're going to go with our Ulthuan grey. Initial impressions, I think these definitely lend themselves better to the small circle stuff. Yeah, they do lend themselves more to the small circle type stuff, and a bit more of the dabbing on, almost like a stab. Yeah, a bit more of a stabbing motion with them. You know, a bit more of a stabbing motion than I don't think this really lends it. So they don't really lend themselves to the up and down motion that the Citadel brushes do, but they do offer more of a circular motion dry brush than a usual up down, if that makes sense. Hopefully it does. And as always, it's you're not putting too much pressure on it. Nice and light, nothing wild. And as you can see, that just slowly taking its form on this Genestealer. I'm just kind of going everywhere with this. I'm just kind of going everywhere with it. I want to make it as light as possible. Cover lots of areas because we're going to usually be using purple and blue. Alright, lots of purple, lots of blue. Okay, and that's happy with that. And then finally, our white scar. And again, we're just going to place that on there. Take it all off. Get it all off there. And again, we'll just kind of just stab it on a little bit. Stab it on. I think you're almost stabbing it on with this. With these dry brushes, we're not flicking it really, it just feels a bit more of a stab than that makes sense. I think when you use these, you'll see what I mean if you do use these. I'm not saying they're not any good, they're alright, it's just going a very different way with the having to use the dry brush differently. Having to use the dry brush, you're just adapting. We're just adapting. But we're trying to get that head. I want to stab that head a bit more. I want to go a little bit lighter on the head, just because I know with the Genestealers, their like heads are a bit weird, aren't they? Heads are a bit weird. Okay, but yeah, we'll just stab a bit more. I'll just stab just all around where I can see where the light is. Or there, the backs. A bit more of a stab than the usual like swish, swish, swish. This doesn't lend itself to that. This dry brush, okay. This dry brush is definitely more of a stabby stab. So I think it's almost cemented the idea at the end with the Zandri Dust that we always do. It cemented that decision to do that. Okay. 2 seconds. And there you have it. That's the model ready to go. Go back to the Citadel STC medium layer. And for this one, we're going to apply our contrast Tallissar Blue. And this is basically going to go all over the model. So we're going to ignore the head. It's going to go on all the carapace. Now we need to be really careful in these areas here because these are going to be purple. All right, so these grooves are all going to be purple. The feet, the hands, the blade area are all going to be purple. Classic Genestealer colour. All right, so we're going to grab our Tallissar Blue. And again, remember guys, light to dark. A couple of bits on your wet palette. A little bit of water in there. Okay. And we're just going to start working on the carapace of the model. Okay. So all we're doing working round. Remember, don't let it pull, move the paint around. We're just pushing that paint around along the arms, minding those gaps and the creases. And again, what we're probably going to do after this, once we've got all this on, I'm probably going to apply a very thin shade of black just to darken it up a little bit. Alright, but we'll get onto that in a minute. First of all, we're just working on all the way down to the ankle. Okay, it's a very classic colour scheme. Okay, so remember, a couple of layers, just going back over those areas just to darken it up a little bit. And we're just, remember, it's better to go, thin layers first, building up the areas, than it is to just go straight from the pot. Okay, so yes, nice and easy, take your time, no rushing it, classic Genestealer look. Alright, so there we have him. There's the blue done, and yeah, I think that's come up rather quite cool actually. I've probably put on 2 coats. I think I've probably put on there. Then 2, just pushing it all around. 2 thinnish coats. Try to keep those areas clear. So as always, that's the main body done. So I'm now going to apply my base, and as always, we're going to go with a classic Sterland Mud. A classic Sterland Mud base. Just a bit of an older brush. A bit of a hot tip for you. These artificer brushes from Games Workshop, I honestly wouldn't waste your time. Sorry, a bit of recaff there. Yeah, these artificer brushes, I wouldn't waste your time. I now use this as a basing brush. Just really didn't gel with it. Didn't think it was that great, to be honest with you. Didn't think it was definitely the money that I'd paid for it. That's for sure. So, just one for you. Yeah, don't waste your time. So yes, Sterland Mud is all we're going to do for these areas here. Just getting them in amongst it. I'm probably going to do like some sort of like jungly theme for it. It was quite cool. So yeah, and then while that's drying out, I'll be able to get all the other layers on. And realistically, this is quite an easy technique, quite an easy model to do. It's basically just 2 colours really, isn't it? It's basically just 2 colours. Right, that's that done. So I'm going to use Shyish purple. That's what I'm going to use for this next part. Okay, Shyish purple. And I'm going to use my small, got my small layer brushes. I'm going to just use my small brush. And as always, you guys, you know the routine. Place the purple on. And I'm going to thin this down. I want this quite thin. I do want this to be a bit thinner. Okay. So again, on the top of the head, we go head. We're going to go hands. Okay, hands. Not the talons, but the hands. We're going to go in between where these gaps are and in between the sort of carapace joints. All right. Oh, and of course the feet. If you end up hitting the talons, don't worry about it because we're going to cover those in a minute anyway. Okay. They're all the areas that we're going to cover. The tongue, we're going to paint that red. Okay, so don't worry about the tongue too much. All right, guys. Cool. Let's get to it. Purple done, as you can see. So next up, we're going to get the tongue done. So we're just going to use a bit of Blood Angel's red. Gives it a bit of a pinkish hue. Ish. Again, place on. And all we're going to do, just nicely on the tongue. Easy as that. Cool. Next, we're going to get his claws and the blades done. So for this, I'm going to use Black Legion, if I can find it, which for some reason, here we are, Black Legion. Okay, we're going to use Black Legion for this. We want it to be dark. We want it to look pretty mean and nasty, just like the fluff for a lot of these. It always, just like we did for the last Tyranid stuff. These blades, the claws, they are the stuff of absolute nightmare, and that is what we're going to make them. Almost just straight up, just the darkness, completely and utterly. So all the claws and the talons, we're going to paint those black. Oof. Already, it's got a bit of a haunting vibe to it, isn't it? You know, already it's got a real haunting vibe to it, which is what we want from a Genestealer. I do like the fluff on Genestealers. The fear that they create. It's like Tyranids in general, really, isn't it? They're just not nice. Which is what we're trying to create with this colour scheme and these claws. Alright. Next up, what we're going to do now is we're going to just darken. You could have really used ultramarine blue if you had it, but all we're going to do is we're just going to darken this up a little bit. I'm going to use Black Templar, okay? I'm going to use Black Templar and I'm going to really thin it down to almost like a glazed consistency. I'm going to get my, almost like I say, my medium brush, and I'm literally take as much of it off as possible. But all I'm going to do is I'm just going to go over the model, just darken. It's very thin, it's nothing wild, but all we're doing, we're just darkening that blue, okay? You do not want to go straight out of the pot with this, okay? This needs to be watered down, otherwise you'll just send it black, okay? So all we're doing, just into all the recesses, but we're just glazing over the blue, okay, just to darken it down a little bit. Okay, we're just darkening it all down, just to really make it a bit more grim, a bit more dark. That's why we always work light to dark, so we can do this sort of stuff, okay? Just over the model, just nice and light, really thin down, and it should dry nice and dark, okay? And it will just take away that sort of flare a little bit. It will just take away that a bit of like, just making it too bright, alright? So like I say, nice and thin. Just getting everywhere in the model. And just darkening it up. Not so that it becomes black, but just so that there's a nice darkness to it. And you'll know if you've gone wrong, but as long as you go thin, just thin it all down, thin it all down. If it gets into the purple, it doesn't really matter too much, because like I say, it's all part of that sort of really dark look that we're trying to create with this Genestealer, you know. Yeah, that's much better. So like I say, just a thin layer of Black Templar over the model, and that really just kind of not dulls it per se, but just gives that bit more of a heinous look to it, if you will. All right, a bit more of a heinous look, which is what we're after. So we'll let that dry, and then we're going to use our Zandri Dust to dry brush the model. I'm going to go back to my small dry brush, my Citadel small dry brush. I just don't think the Army Painter dry brushes, from what I'm kind of going with already, lend itself to what we want to achieve here. Okay, so for our final dry brush, we're going to go back to our small dry brush. Okay, Zandri Dust time. Zandri Dust time. We're going to need to get ourselves a fresh piece of tissue, or if you've of course got your texture palette. And like I say, I'm going back to the Citadel dry brush just because it lends itself a bit better to the to what we're after. They're quite a small brush, as you can see, and you know that I like to feather it on. I just don't think you get that same the same depth with that, but these are really good for that initial dry brush at the start, I will say that. But as always, we're going to use this one here. So just making sure the model's nice and dry, which it is. Now we are going to go on the blades a little bit. We don't want everything. Our usual way of doing it. You know the routine, guys. Zandri Dust on, take it all off. And remember, we just make sure loads of it is off, guys. And remember, we are literally feathering it. Yep. Really, really light. And you'll see the progressive change. We don't rush this. We just keep this feathered touch, nice and light, all over the model. Okay? Just feathered touch all over the model. Now we can on the head go a little bit firmer with it, just because of the way the veins sit, okay? But everywhere else, feathered touch, really light over the model, okay? Nice and light. We're just taking away the blotchiness. That's all we're doing here. And you're just going to keep going until it's all completely off. All right? Or you're not seeing any changes. Okay, but as you can start to see, there's a slight change in the model's look. Okay, you can start to see all the highlights coming in. Okay, so nice and light, feathered touch. So hopefully you can see that quite nicely. It's taken a lot of the shine off, and it's yeah, come along quite nicely. Yeah, that dry brush definitely helps at the end there, doesn't it? So all we're going to do now, we're just going to do the whites of the eyes, and I'm going to give it, controversially, yeah, I'm going to give him green eyes. I'm going to give him a green eye. I know what you're thinking. Controversial, Dan. You're living life on the edge. So as always, easy way to do eyes, white scar. White scar, a bit of white scar in there. Ooh, what's happened to the brush there? That's not ideal. That is not good. So I'll sort it out. Okay. And all we do, just nice and easily, into the eyes. Hopefully you can see that alright. But you'll see where the eye socket sits nicely. And then we're just gonna into the eye. Hasn't got to be too neat, because like I say, we're gonna use our contrast paints to give it the depth that we want it to. And then for the actual glow of the eyes, we're going to use our contrast warp lightning. Okay, we're actually going to use some contrast warp lightning. Okay, and again on the palette. And then just into the areas. And again, if you want to, say, you can just go around the eyes with it, create a bit of a greenish hue. I quite like that green, actually. It's quite cool. It really makes that just really haunting on this model. You know, you're almost giving it a bit of just a horrible glow around the eyes, just where the edge highlight's been from the dry brush. And if you want to make it a bit darker, you can do. It's easy to do, just add a bit more in there. That would just darken it up nicely. Alright. Well, that's basically it, guys. And if you want to put some blood splats onto the blades, you can do. If you want to go back over the blades, you know, you can do. But that's basically your Genestealer done. Yeah, very simple to do. So we're going to skip to the part, as always, where the base is done. And you see the model in a bit of a different light. Okay. There we go. Some classic Genestealer all done. The old Space Hulk Genestealer colour scheme, blue and purple. There we go, all done. Like I say, I think those that hand light with Zandri Dust just really kind of helps it out a little bit. I've just added some army painter bases on there. All I have done as well, I've just gone over the tips of the sides with a bit of black Templar. So yeah, just letting a bit of PVA glue just dry in there. But otherwise, guys, that's him all done. If you found this video useful, as always, give it a thumbs up, give us a like, and if you're trying it out, let us know how it turns out for you. Anyway, guys, that's enough from me. Signing off for now. See you on the next one. Bye bye.